Fine, back to Paul. Who's the best wing shooter of all time?
The best wing shooter of all time? Right now, it's Ray Allen, but it will be Steph.
It will?
It will be Steph.
He's not a wing, though.
Wait.
What is Steph?
He's a point guard.
Oh, he's a wing guy.
What?
He's a wing guy. He's a combo
Man,
guard. That's not a point guard.
Get this show over with,
He's
man.
a wing guy. But Ray Allen, he's
So
the best
Steph
wing
Curry
shooter of
is
all
not
time.
he's a wing guy?
Yeah, he just
What is a wing guy?
Namaste, listeners. This is the Ball Don't Lie podcast, episode number 2. If you didn't catch the first one last week, what are you doing? Like, seriously. This is Penn State Sports Night's NBA dedicated podcast. I am Hunter Pitcoff, yours truly, kicking it here with David Green. Preseason now underway. Last week it wasn't. Now it is kicked off. We started to get a taste of the NBA season, which is only 12 nights away.
How we doing, everybody? Like Hunter said, 12 days away until the regular season. I'm so excited to get everything underway. The preseason has been quite entertaining, to say the least. So let's just jump right in.
Yeah, it has been entertaining, and just like everything with the NBA, we are going to overreact. So that's going to be our first segment. We're going to blow things out of proportion. I'm going to list some, statements that have been said. This isn't stuff that I just made up in my head. People actually have been saying this all over sports media, NBA media. So I'm just going to bring it to your attention, David, and we're just going to see, does these bold statements hold any substance whatsoever? So the first one, the Lakers did have a really impressive performance on their preseason opener against the Golden State Warriors, a very respectable team. Anthony Davis and LeBron did their thing. Lakers are locks to win the NBA championship after one preseason game. Are you buying that?
So I think it's a bit of an overreaction. I think the Lakers have the potential to get to the finals and win the finals. They have LeBron James, so anything's possible. And LeBron James has a very worthy sidekick at this point. So I don't think it's crazy to say that, but I think after just one preseason game, it is a bit of an overreaction. What do you think?
As a Laker fan, I do think this is an overreaction. Not that I don't think that they can't win the championship, because I very well could, but, like, it's Anthony Davis. Like, A, he always plays well against the Warriors, and B, like, did we not forget this dude is, like, one of the best players in the NBA? Like, obviously, he hasn't played basketball or meaningful basketball in quite some time. He was looking to show out his first ever appearance wearing a Laker uniform, even if it was just preseason. So I'm going to say it's an overreaction just to be like, it's over, throw in the towel, Lakers are winning it all after a preseason game. But another statement I'm going to make here, Zion Williamson is playing really well in the preseason. Last night, Wednesday night against the Bulls, he had 29 points, 12 of 13 from the field. I know you definitely aren't going to agree with this statement. Zion Williamson is going to have one of the best rookie seasons in modern NBA history.
Also, I think it's a bit of an overreaction. I know he had a really good preseason game. He's attacking the rim like very, very aggressively. If you take a look at his shot chart from last night, every single one of those was inside the paint. So
everyone.
That's good. Of course, he's making all those. But until he hits some jump shots and shoots that percentage, I don't think I'm ready to make a statement that bold just yet.
It was interesting because, like, players were actually contesting him from the perimeter. Like, when he caught the ball outside the paint, people were actually, like, running out to him, and then he took what the defense was giving him, which was kind of stupid from the Bulls' part because, like, he had a wide open, like, way of the basket every single possession, basically. That's why he had all those dunks, all those nice jelly finishes. But I do think Zion could have a really special year this year with the Pelicans. This is weird because he's a number one pick that's actually walking into a pretty good situation. Like, the Pelicans have a good team surrounding him, parts that actually mesh and fit, a good blend of veterans and young players as well. It kind of reminds me when, not as good, but when Tim Duncan went to the Spurs. Like, the Spurs had David Robinson and stuff like that. Like, they were already a good team. So I think Zion's going into a really good situation. I would not be shocked at all if he thrives.
Yeah, I'd agree. The Pelicans definitely have that infrastructure that a first overall pick would want to come into. It's not like he's joining the worst team in the NBA. Let's be honest, the Pelicans got so lucky winning that draft lottery and getting the first pick. They were far from the worst team in the NBA last year. So Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Zion came into a very good situation. I think he has good young players around him, but they also have the veterans like JJ Redick is there. So I think factors like that will really help. And he could have a very good year this year. I just after the one preseason game again, I'm not ready to say he's going to have this historical rookie year just based off of one preseason game.
Yeah, and last statement to make here. If you have not been on Twitter the last couple of days, or at least followed any NBA news, this may be a bit in the dark, but otherwise, it's been well known. Ben Simmons found his jump shot potentially. He hit his first three-pointer. It looked pretty nice. It came out of his hand pretty smooth. It was off the dribble, a couple feet from beyond the line. So I'm curious to hear you, David, you being a 76er fan. Is the jump shot, is it cured? Does he have it now?
Hunter, let me
Is
tell
it in
you.
the bag?
Let me tell you that shot he made, it was a beautiful sight to see, especially coming from a Sixers fan. He about blew the roof off the building when that shot went in. Embiid was hyping him up. The entire bench cleared when he had a three-pointer. It was a little crazy, but with that being said, I'm really encouraged that he had that shot and it looked good. It didn't look super forced, like you said. It came off his hands pretty good. Looked like a good shot. Fluid shot. He had good form, but let's pump the brakes a little bit. I don't think Ben Simmons is going to be shooting like 6 and 7 threes a game. I think that's a little crazy, and I don't know if he's going to be shooting like over 40% or anything like that, unless he, only shoots it when he's wide open. So we'll see. Like you said, it was off the dribble, so it's not like he has to catch and shoot and be completely wide open. His ball handling is out of this world. So if he can continue and build on that from last night, I think it was a big confidence booster for him.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal with him because he wouldn't even attempt a three before. So I think it's cured for now enough for Ben Simmons. He's no Steph Curry, obviously, but I think for what Ben Simmons needed to accomplish this year, it's a very good thing to see.
Yeah, I think the key word you said was confidence. Circle that in your, diction, if you will. I think Ben Simmons, I think he has the confidence to shoot that now. That's what we saw. I don't know, maybe it's preseason. He was just like, screw it, let's just shoot it, see what happens. But yeah, it is interesting because I as I said on this podcast last week, I think Ben Simmons can become a top 10 NBA player if he actually can shoot the ball. And a lot of people have said Ben Simmons, is he overrated? Is he underrated? Well, today we are going to shed light on the players who are overlooked by many. Me and David both compiled an all-NBA underrated team. So we're going to have 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center. We're not going to do second and third team. That'd be a little bit asking much. But we're going to do all-NBA underrated team. How you want to do this? You want me to read my 5? You read your 5? How you want to go about this?
You want to go one at a time with this, and then give our a little bit of feedback each time. You want to go first?
Yeah. By the way, me and David do not know who the other person wrote.
Yeah, we kept this a total mystery. So
Yep.
I haven't seen Hunter's list. He's not seen mine, and we're gonna see if we picked any of the same players.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was curious about. So, first player on my list. This is a guard. I'm gonna read chronologically speaking. Is Tim Hardaway Jr.
Okay.
Yeah, look,
Interesting.
Yeah, it is, because he averaged 18 points a game last year, and now he has Kristaps Porzingis with Dallas. I think he could be that third scorer after Luka and KP. He's played with Porzingis already and has shown it's worked with the Knicks. He actually is a pretty good defender. He did play in Michigan. Michigan's always known for defense, and he can shoot off the dribble. He gets to the basket. He's great off the ball, catch and shoot. He's just a really good fit and a player that, he's not a superstar. He's not going to necessarily, carry you to a championship, but he's a really good complementary piece for this Mavericks team, and he fits really nicely in this offense.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you made. I didn't even think of Tim Hardaway Jr. when you mentioned this.
Exactly.
I remember 2 years ago, last year, I was like, they gave this guy all this money. I can't believe it, but he's a pretty solid player. I think he can make a jump this year too, especially given who he's around or who's around him. And he's played with Porzingis before, so I think that's a solid name drop there.
Yeah.
So my first one is a Toronto Raptor, and his name is Fred VanVleet,
Ooh,
a guy that Kevin
love me
Durant
some of that.
mentioned in the last couple of days, just how good of a player he is. The guy went undrafted. He's super hard worker. Let's not forget who locked down Steph Curry in the finals last year.
Oh, man.
Locked
Oh,
down is a
man.
strong term,
Oh,
but,
man.
but I mean, someone's got to guard Steph Curry, and Fred VanVleet stepped up to the plate and did it. And he shot the lights out in the playoffs last year. So I'm rolling with Fred VanVleet as my first overlooked player. I'm not sure what the Raptors are going to be able to do this year, but Fred VanVleet's going to play a major role for that team, especially with Kawhi Leonard gone. So I think he's definitely overlooked, and no one's talking about him. Now that the finals are over and we're thinking about this season now, I feel like Fred VanVleet's flying under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting because I feel like he's flown under the radar his whole life. He wasn't a really highly recruited player. He went to Wichita State, was really, really good there, goes undrafted, goes to the Raptors, builds his way up to being sixth man of the year candidate. Then eventually, after he had his significant other gave birth to his son, and he's finally a father, he started shooting really well in the playoffs and played really well. Was a big part of the NBA Finals. Hubie Brown voted him Finals MVP.
My guy Hubie.
Hubie Brown. It was the only Kawhi Leonard would have been unanimous Finals MVP if it wasn't for Hubie Brown voted Fred VanVleet. I love that pick. I hope he's not underrated because I think he's really, really good. But yeah, he's been overlooked his whole life. He's not as hard over height. He's not always the most athletic guy, but he just works harder and wants it more than a lot of other players. Now, next on my list, I want you to guess a little bit. I have a player on the Nets. Who do you think it is?
A guy on the Nets? That's interesting because my next guy's also on the Nets.
Oh, God.
Would it happen to be Spencer Dinwiddie?
Ooh, it's not.
Okay.
It's not.
Who did you pick?
I said Karis LeVert.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Spencer Dinwiddie's a really good one. I thought about putting on my list him and Joe Harris. But
All kinds of Nets are overlooked.
There's a lot of overlooked Nets. Jared Allen's good too, but Karis LeVert, if it's not for injuries, I think he could have been the best player on that team last year, and that's with D'Angelo Russell.
You think so?
Yeah, Karis LeVert's got a lot of skill. I know that they lost in 5 to the Nets, to the Sixers in the first round, but he looked really good. Injuries have held him back his whole career, even dating back to his college years. I have 2 Michigan Wolverines in my all underrated team. So shout out John Beilein for his time there. Not there anymore, but yeah, Karis LeVert can do a little bit of everything. He's big, strong, athletic. He could play multiple positions. He kind of reminds me of a young Tyreek Evans, but a better shooter. Maybe not as good point guard abilities, but just being able to be on different areas of the court, being able to operate in different settings. I think Karis LeVert's really good, and I think he's going to really help this Nets team, especially this year when they're missing KD.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up Karis LeVert, and admittingly, I don't know a whole lot about the guy, too. He really, truly is flying under the radar. As a Sixers fan, when the Sixers faced the Nets in the playoffs last year, I gotta say, I was really stressed out with Karis LeVert. He was getting buckets, and he was playing pretty solid defense as well. The guy's a good two-way player. He has size. He's athletic. He's still young. And I think he's a really hard worker. He had to rehab from that injury and get back.
That was bad earlier in the year. I thought he was done for the year, and he came back from it.
Yeah, he had to have a strong rehab and get back for the playoffs, which is really hard to do. So I definitely have respect for Karis LeVert. I think he's one of several Nets that are overlooked and or underrated.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with that one.
Yeah, you want to talk about Spencer Dinwiddie a bit?
Yeah, so my next guy, I spoiled it earlier. It is Spencer Dinwiddie. I think he's overlooked. Yeah, he did win the award for Most Improved Player. So I think that, some might say he's not overlooked because of that, but I think that with D'Angelo Russell on the team, being a bigger name and, former Laker, I think a lot of people forget about Spencer Dinwiddie. This guy is for real. He can run an offense. He can shoot it. He can catch and shoot it, shoot off the dribble. He's a facilitator. I think Spencer Dinwiddie is a phenomenal player, and he's going to be in this league for a long time.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because, it didn't really work out when he was on the Pistons. He played at Colorado as a second-round pick in Detroit. Didn't really play a lot, which is funny because the Pistons have always had point guard issues, and now Spencer Dinwiddie goes to a different team, and now he looks really good. So I guess that's just the bad luck for Detroit. But, yeah, spreading love the Brooklyn way, of course, me and David. Now I'm going to go into the forwards a bit. One player on my list had a really good year last year, was actually able to stay healthy. I guess that's the theme on my team, is Danilo Gallinari.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Gallinari can put up some points. I'll tell you that.
That's the thing. Like, he's not like one of the elite. He's not the elite forwards, right? You know, like LeBron, Kawhi. Like, he's not that, but he's definitely on that next tier. You know, he averaged, I believe, upwards of 20 points per game last year for the Clippers. He's now on the Thunder, who are a really interesting team. I'm not really quite sure how good or bad they'll be. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but they could be a fun, entertaining team. Playing with Chris Paul, I think Chris Paul can get him a lot of good looks. He's just a really, really good player who's been in the league for a long time. And, again, had a really good year last year, so I'm going to give him love.
Yeah, Gallinari is a great pick also. I think he's one of those, he's a really versatile player. We know how good of a shooter he is. How tall is he? We don't know for sure because all these updated NBA heights coming out. But
Yeah, I think
he's
he's
like 6'9" or 6'10".
He's big, and he's big. Like, yeah,
he's no twig, that's
No.
for sure. So this guy, he can shoot it. You can put him anywhere on the court, and he'll be effective. So I definitely think Gallinari is somewhat overlooked. He's not talked about a whole lot.
Yeah, who do you have next, David?
All right, so next, for those of you that will say this guy's not a forward, I'm sorry, but I had to put him in my list. He's 6'5", so he's not that short.
In today's NBA works.
Yeah, and he has not really had the opportunity to play, so I'm rolling with Lonnie Walker on the Spurs.
I had him on my list. I took him
Right. off
for Levert.
Yes.
Yes.
So Lonnie Walker, out of Pennsylvania, so this guy, no one's
Reddick.
talking about him. Everyone who talks about the Spurs is like, oh, DeJounte Murray's coming back. It's such a big deal for them. How about Lonnie Walker? Did anyone happen to see what this guy did in the Summer League?
Oh, he was the best player.
Yeah, he looked
Best player.
phenomenal in the Summer League. He's unbelievably athletic. I think the jump shot is going to improve. And I think with a coach like Coach Popovich, he will be a disciplined defender. So I think Lonnie Walker has tons of potential, and I think he's really hungry to get back also after being injured last year. So Lonnie Walker's my pick. I know he's not a forward, I'm sorry, but he's on my list. And watch out for the Spurs this year because they have a lot of sneaky players, including Lonnie Walker.
Yeah, Spurs are interesting. They're going to be one of those teams fighting for a playoff spot, in my opinion, and it's really hard to ever count out the Spurs, in my opinion. Yeah, Lonnie Walker, that's a good pick. Yeah, he's so much. I had him as a top 10 player on my entering that draft 2018. He did in fact make my top 10. So I thought he was just super
rightfully
talented.
so,
And he
rightfully
I think
so.
he went 18th in the draft to the Spurs. Of course, Spurs just get lucky and these amazing players just follow them, I guess. So another forward I have on my list. He's a forward center, a bit of a combo. John Collins for the Atlanta Hawks.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
He can throw down.
He can throw down. He's got finesse too. He can shoot from the outside. He's got a improved handle, I guess. He's got that little floater game as well. I love the fit with Trae Young, of course. And yeah, everyone talks about Trae Young, and even Kevin Huerter gets a lot of love. But like John Collins may be the best player, like right now, the best player on that team. He was 19-9 last year as a sophomore.
19-9?
As a second-year player. Yeah, I looked into it.
I did not realize his numbers were that high.
He was good. He was really good for the Hawks, and I think he's going to be really good again. I was watching clips of him with Team USA. He was on the select team, and I was like, why is he on the select team? Because he's killing guys who are actually on the team right now. So, yeah, I think John Collins is going to keep building off of what he did. Maybe he's an all-star this year.
Oh, bold take. So
Bold take.
I think that the Hawks are one of those really sneaky teams. Again, we talked about last week, the East is wide open. And I have a friend who's a diehard Hawks fan, and last year they were supposedly supposed to be tanking, and he's like, hey, why are you guys winning so many games all of a sudden? So I think Collins was a major reason for that, and who knows, the Hawks could make a playoff appearance this year,
They
and
could.
Collins, he's a focal point of that team.
He really is, yeah. David, who else you got on your list? Is this actually a forward this time?
It's a forward this time. He's an undersized
Of course.
undersized
Of course.
player, but
He's a small team.
absolutely a forward. So from the Houston Rockets, I think every team in the league would want a
I
PJ
know
Tucker
yeah,
on their team.
Glue guy, definitely.
You
Ultimate
ha-
glue guy.
You have to have a guy like PJ Tucker on your team. And everyone with the Rockets talks about, oh, James Harden, now they have Russell Westbrook, even Clint Capella, shooters like Eric Gordon, he won Sixth Man of the Year. So no one talks about PJ Tucker enough. And obviously his shoe game is amazing.
It's premier.
Right. Aside from that, PJ Tucker is one of the toughest, hardest working, hard-nosed players in this league. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he led the league last year in corner 3-point percentage, which is huge.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great cat. That's one thing that I don't think he was when he got into the league, and I don't know if it's because he got to the Rockets or not, but it was those catch-and-shoot threes, especially from the corner. Like they always leave him open because James Harden and Clint Capella draw so much attention. Now Russell Westbrook. A player who I almost put on my list from the Rockets was Austin Rivers.
Okay, interesting.
Because I think he's a very important part of that team, and a guy that, while the Rockets aren't deep, he comes in and can guard multiple positions, and he can just get buckets. So that's the guy who I almost put on my list. But P.J. Tucker, a great pick nevertheless.
Yeah, P.J. Tucker, whenever they go up against, a team like even the Golden State Warriors who they're not very top-heavy with big men, he was giving them so many problems on both the offensive and defensive boards. He's only like 6'6", but
yeah, he's not tall.
But he's so tough and physical. P.J. Tucker, I think, is totally overlooked, and if I was an NBA GM, I would do anything I could to get a guy like P.J. Tucker.
Yeah, definitely agree. And yeah, he was a guy who wasn't even in the league a few years ago and worked his way.
Just goes to show how hard of a worker he is.
100%. Now, my last one, kicking it off, a center. I don't know how this guy's, in my opinion, underrated. I think he was used wrong last year, and I also think that he is in no man's land with the Phoenix Suns, but former number 1 pick DeAndre Ayton rounds out my list. He averaged 16 and 10 last year, was top 10, I believe, in field goal percentage. I think he has a lot of skill, a lot of developing left. Maybe it's because they didn't have a true point guard. Now they have Ricky Rubio. It could also be the Suns are just a really bad team. But I think DeAndre Ayton is a really good player, a guy that I think was slept on last year. Even though he was first-team All-Rookie, I just felt like everyone talked about Luka and talked about Trae Young, but DeAndre Ayton never really got any love.
Yeah, I could not agree more about that point with everyone talking about Luka and Trae Young last year. I think it's one of those things where if DeAndre Ayton was taken in one of those drafts where there wasn't so much talent like last year's draft, he would be talked about more. But like you said, his numbers last year with the Suns, they were pretty solid. I think he had a solid year, and I think he can make a jump this year. And we were talking about bad teams earlier when we were looking at the rundown. The Suns have a lot of talent.
They do.
They might not be that bad this year.
Monty Williams, too, head coach now.
Yeah, so DeAndre Ayton, I would definitely build a team around him.
Yeah, I mean, they basically exclusively used him in pick and rolls. They never really ran any plays for him, which is kind of unfortunate.
You gotta use the guy
He's
more.
really talented. He can shoot. He can handle. He's a good high post passer as well. So yeah, you got to use him more. You can't take a guy number 1 and not use him at all. And speaking of small market teams, there is a lot more big market teams or a lot less big market teams, the premier teams we talk about, than small market teams. That's basically the United States in a nutshell. To be completely honest with you. So, David, we wrote down
Hunter, real quick, I have one more overlooked player.
I did. I completely forgot about that.
So
I got ahead.
So this is my last overlooked player. I had to roll with a center for this one. So it's another Brooklyn Net. We said these Brooklyn Nets they have a lot of players that are overlooked probably just because they're the Brooklyn Nets. So Jarrett Allen is my center for being an overlooked.
3 Nets on our list.
I know, but
that shows you they're a good team.
We had to do it to him with the list with all these Nets. So I'm rolling with Jarrett Allen, and my roommate last year actually reminded me a lot of how much of a problem Jarrett Allen is. This guy's one of the best rim protectors in the entire league, if we're being honest.
Mm-hmm.
There's a play of him blocking some of the best players in the NBA. I think he swatted LeBron last year attacking the rim. He swatted some of the best players
Anthony
in the
Davis,
league.
He got Giannis pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm like, who is this man? Jarrett Allen.
Snatching souls.
Yeah, he's protecting the rim against some of the top players in the NBA pretty consistently. The Nets made that playoff appearance in large part because Jarrett Allen's rim protection's amazing. He's great on the boards. So I think if he can develop his offensive game a little more, he's going to be a really solid player, and he's still very young. So I'm rolling with the Texas Longhorn, Jarrett Allen, as one of my final last overlooked player.
Yeah, that was my bad. I got a bit ahead of myself. I wanted that smooth transition with DeAndre Ayton and the bad Phoenix Suns team.
It was a good segue.
It was a good segue, but got in a car crash. But happens. So yeah, let's talk about some teams in the small market world. I listed a couple on our rundown, but if there's anyone else you want to talk about, David, I'll let you pick your premier team right now. There's a lot of teams you could pick from. So who do you want to kick this off with?
Yeah, so we actually talked about it on the way over here. The first team that comes to my mind with the small market teams is the Memphis Grizzlies. I think this team has some real talent on it. They Andre Iguodala's kind of trapped there.
Yeah.
So he'll be there, and he'll be there, veteran presence.
Don't know if he'll play, but
Yeah, so their second overall pick this year, I think Ja Morant is for real, and
Yeah.
he's exactly what you would look for in a point guard in today's game. He
Point
can do
guard.
it all.
Point God.
Yeah, he's got that. Exactly. He
Say it right.
carried Murray State to the Sweet 16, I believe.
Yeah.
And this guy's no joke. He's a dog. He can play defense, and he's one of those point guards who's like a triple-double machine. He's almost similar to Russell Westbrook in that sense, but I think he's a better shooter than Westbrook. And then him and Jaren Jackson Jr.,
Yeah.
they seem to really be developing this good chemistry. And I think Jaren Jackson was another player that was overlooked last year. We could only fit 5 guys on each of our lists. Jaren Jackson was one of those rookies that not enough guys talked about last year. So what do you think?
I love what the Grizzlies are doing with Ja and Jaren Jackson as well. I love both those guys. I think their games fit, but their games also fit not only together, but they also fit in like the modern NBA as well. Ja Morant up and down the court, also really good in the pick and roll. He's like a master at that. Jaren Jackson is a legit 7-footer who can shoot. Like, it's not like, oh, he can kind of shoot. Like, no, he hits threes in high volume, and he can get hot just like any of the best shooters in the league can. I'm really interested to see his growth from year 1 to year 2. Murray State actually went to the round of 32. They did not make the Sweet 16.
Okay.
Just want to do that. Make sure that, we are still a credible source. Don't worry, I messed up pretty bad off the record. I said Donovan Mitchell did not average close to 24 points per game last year. He did. David had my number on that one. That was my bad. That was me. I was, chopping it up at Chipotle.
Yeah, man, you got to give the man his credit.
Yeah,
Spider
I do.
Mitchell, he got those buckets last year.
I love Donovan Mitchell. He is a terrific player. Actually, let's talk about the Jazz a little bit. I'd say they're a small market, Salt Lake City. This is a really good team. We actually had PSSN's own Brad Strausser, me, him, and John Keenan. We did a Bold Predictions NBA segment. That's on camera. You can check it out. There's the plug. But he said that the Jazz are going to be a top 2 team in the Western Conference this year. I'm not 100% sold on that, but I think that they made legit improvements to the roster this year, and I think they could be better.
The Jazz are for real. I don't know if they're the second best team in the West. The West is super loaded, especially this year, but the Jazz are here, and they can make major noise even in the playoffs in the West. You got everyone that you had last year. You bring in Bogdanovich, is that right?
Yep.
This team has depth. They have the Defensive Player of the Year.
Back-to-back.
Back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year. Maybe the best rim protector in the entire league. Donovan Mitchell's really coming into his own. Like we said, he averaged nearly 24 points a game last year. You got Joe Ingles, who somehow did an amazing job guarding Paul George in the playoffs.
Paul George has nightmares about Joe Ingles.
And I'm a big fan of Snyder, their coach, so
Yeah,
I really think that the Jazz can make major noise this year, and I think they can make a jump from last year and be even better.
Yeah, I do like the Utah Jazz. Mike Conley, they also got.
Mike Conley,
Yeah,
how could I forget?
exactly.
Mike Conley's a major
that's a
addition
good
for them.
starting lineup with Conley, Mitchell,
Talk
Ingles,
about an upgrade at the point guard position.
Bogdanovich, and Rudy Gobert. I mean, there's so much shooting, so much defensive prowess as well. Bogdanovich was really good with the Pacers last year also. Let's not forget that. He was the leading scorer for that team when Victor Oladipo went down. They were a 5 seed as a result, which is pretty impressive if you ask me. Yeah, I do like the Jazz this year. I wasn't sold on top 2, but I think they will be definitely a playoff team. I think they'll get into the playoffs in the West. Like, I don't think they'll be a team that's fighting to get in. They'll have their share and their opportunity to compete with the juggernauts. Another team that I do think could be top 2 in the West this year, maybe even the 1 seed. I don't know if they're the best team in the West, but I think regular season they could get the job done, is the Denver Nuggets. This team got a lot better, mainly due to trade, mainly due to players just honestly being healthy. They acquired Jeremy Grant in the offseason. I thought that was a sneaky addition. They maintained, basically the same core as last year, a very young core. And Michael Porter Jr. is making his return. He's back, looking good in the preseason. I'm very excited to see how he looks. He could be a Rookie of the Year candidate, too, because he does classify as the rookie, a Ben Simmons effect, you can say. But, yeah, I think the Nuggets could be really good this year.
Yeah, we talked about it the other day, too, with the Nuggets. I think Jamal Murray, he's a very good player. He's just, if he can be more consistent, if he can do what he did last year, just more consistently, and then, like you said, Michael Porter, he's looking so good in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
Guy's like 6'10", and he can shoot from anywhere on the floor, can create his own shot. If he gets a lot of minutes this year, I think he's going to be super effective, and I think he'll get those minutes. And, you got the Joker. We agreed that he's probably the best passing big man in basketball, and those dribble handoffs, it's impossible to guard those. He's so big, and he just hands it off to these guys.
Yeah.
And they have all those wing players who can shoot the ball. You got Gary Harris. We mentioned Jamal Murray. They have all these players who can shoot the ball. And they're young still. So I think the Nuggets have major potential this year. They went to 7 games with the Blazers. They beat them. So, I mean, it's tough. That West is super loaded, but watch out for the Denver Nuggets, especially if they somehow get home court advantage in the playoffs. It's going to be really hard to beat them.
They're a really good team at home at Pepsi Center as well. And like you said, they were literally one fourth quarter away, because that game was neck and neck between the Blazers and the Nuggets to playing in the Western Conference Finals. I think this team's going to be really good this year. They're also really deep. And that helps in the regular season as well, because you can keep your guys fresh. Now, let's flip it over a bit, go back to the East Coast. We talked very extensively last week about the Bucks and Sixers and who we think could have the upper edge. But outside those top 2 teams, there are definitely, there's 13 other teams in the Eastern Conference, so we should probably talk about them as well. Is there any other team that can really contend with those 2 teams, you think?
So I was looking at your list here, and it was lists of teams in the East that did make the playoffs last year. Look, I think the Miami Heat should have made the playoffs last year. They were not able to get there, in large part because the Celtics late in the season were not able to beat the Magic for whatever reason. I'll still never get over that.
Won't get over it.
Being a former Floridian. But, Dwayne Wade retires. He rides off into the sunset. So there goes that leadership piece that you had. But look, they made some strong additions. Obviously, Jimmy Butler. He's a closer. He's a super versatile, one of the best two-way players in the league. He can lead a team. And I think Tyler Hero was a phenomenal draft pick for them. The guy, he's more of he can shoot the ball. We knew he was a shooter coming in. But after watching a little preseason action, he can create his own shot and shoot off the dribble more than I realized. I think Tyler Hero is going to be a strong addition for them too. So watch out for the Miami Heat. I really think that they can be, maybe even a 5 or 6 seed in the East this year. I'm
a big Tyler Hero guy. I've been a big Tyler Hero guy. I was someone who was like, nah, this dude's good. He's not just a catch and shoot guy. He is improving in the pick and roll, which is really big for the NBA. We saw him grow at that part of the offense during his time at Kentucky.
He has size too.
He's 6'6". He only has a 6'3" wingspan, which is weird that he has shorter arms than he does height. That's very rare, especially the difference. But he shoots off the dribble really well. He's just a bucket. That guy can just flat out score. Again, getting Jimmy Butler changes a lot for this team. I think culture-wise, and Jimmy Butler just fits the part in Miami. He just seems like he just fits. Philly, it was a little awkward, but they made it work.
Right.
Minnesota clearly didn't work, but it just makes sense. Him in Miami. I think Bam Adebayo is another really good player.
I love Bam.
Bam's really good, and I think he's only going to get better as well. It just seems like the Heat are always just able to mesh the right guys together. Eric Spoelstra is always a coach that gets the best out of his players and gets them playing as a team. So I am interested to see how good the Miami Heat can be this year. A team I want to talk about a bit. I did not get to talk about it in our bowl prediction segment on Monday because we got cut off because we were running low on time. But I was going to make a prediction. I didn't think it was bold when I said it, but everybody else was like, whoa, Hunter, you got to pause the brakes there. I think the Raptors will have the 3rd best record in the East this year.
You really think so?
Without Kawhi Leonard. Look.
Let me hear why.
They went 17-5 without him last year.
Okay, that's a good point.
That's 22 games. That's a quarter of the season, that's a more than enough sample size to tell you that they could be really good. They lost Danny Green, of course, which is big, but this team just didn't forget how to lose games. Like, they're still really good. I think Pascal Siakam is a lock to be an all-star in the East this year. Like, he's making the all-star team. He's going to be the best player on this team. You still got Kyle Lowry, Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, your boy Fred VanVleet. You know, Fred VanVleet definitely want to listen to our podcast because he gets all the love here.
Love that guy.
But yeah, I think they added Stanley Johnson, which is interesting. That's a good get. And I think Nick Nurse is just a really good coach, and he just knows how to get players together. He knows how to galvanize the troops, make proper roster adjustments. I also think that there's a couple more moves left that Masai Ujiri can pull off for this team as well. Just watch out for the Raptors. I think they're going to be really good.
You know, one very interesting factor about the Raptors, and everyone forgets about this with last year, OG Anunoby got hurt, and he did not come back, and they
really
won
good.
the finals without him. I was one of those naysayers saying, I don't think the Raptors can get through the Bucks. OG Anunoby's not there. Like, what are they going to do? They won without him last year, and he's a strong player, so he's going to be almost like an addition for them.
Yeah.
And I agree with you about Kyle Lowry coming back, but that combination of Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol, let me tell you, they gave the Sixers major problems. They're both veterans, both phenomenal defensive players. They can both shoot it, and they're both rebounders, of the highest order. So 3 seed might be slightly high, but I mean, the Raptors, they're still no joke. I will definitely agree with that, and I think they absolutely make the playoffs.
I'm standing by it. I really do think that they're going to be the 3 seed this year.
I respect it.
Another team that we brought up a bit earlier that screwed over David and his Miami Heat, the Orlando Magic. I think this team's interesting. Markelle Fultz played in the preseason. He looked good. His jump shot looked a lot better. It seemed like the form actually made sense. It wasn't weird. But, the Magic were statistically the best defense in the NBA last season after the All-Star break. They gave the Raptors a good run in the playoffs. They lost in 5, but I think they were competitive games nevertheless. They're really long and just tall. Like, they just look bigger than everybody else. They got some good scorers. Nikola Vucevic was an all-star last year. Aaron Gordon. Michael Carter-Williams actually gets a lot of minutes on that team, which is interesting. And I think Jonathan Isaac's an underrated player as well, a guy who's still developing into his body. But he's, we talked about it last week, how Giannis it's rare that a guy his size can do all the things he can do. Isaac's not that, but he's a guy who can do a little bit of everything as well. So I am curious to see this young team also mixed with veterans, and if they can maybe get to a top 4 or 5 seed in the East this year.
Yeah, I definitely really like the Orlando Magic. They're one of those teams that definitely fly under the radar. Jonathan Isaac, I think that he could be a candidate this year for most improved player. Yeah. I haven't sat down and looked at his numbers from last year, but he seems to improve every time I watch the guy. His size is ridiculous. Kevin Durant, again, had really nice things to say about him, not just Fred VanVleet. Michael Carter-Williams, super versatile. I honestly forgot the guy was even in the league like 2 years ago. So the fact that he has a role there and he was playing a major role in the playoffs, and the return of Mo Bamba, I think will definitely pay off for them. So you got Mo Bamba, you got Jonathan Isaac, you got Vooch, who is an all-star. They are long and tall. The Orlando Magic, I think, will reappear in the playoffs. Yeah,
and as you said earlier, KD, he was very vocal this week about his opinions on things. And so getting a compliment from Kevin Durant, he means it. He's not someone who's just going to compliment people for the sake of doing it. And he also said something that was kind of interesting. He said the Knicks are not cool anymore. So we're going to talk about those not cool teams next right here. The Tankathon, the front runners, if you will. The Knicks are definitely one of them. There's no Zion Williamson, in my opinion, to tank for this year. But nevertheless, there's always going to be your top teams, and there's always going to be your bottom feeders. So, David, who do you think are going to be some of the worst teams in the league this year?
So going into this segment, the Suns are the first team that comes to mind because they were just so bad last year and the year before. They go through coaches like I go through water. So, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Drinks a lot of water.
So I wanted to pick the Suns, but at this point, I think the Suns have so much talent. There's no way they're the worst team in the league again. So I'm going to go with a team in the East. I think the Charlotte Hornets.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're
team's
tanking
yikes.
hard. I think Michael Jordan, he's the greatest player in basketball that we've seen. Probably the worst owner maybe ever. We saw what happened with the Wizards. He took Kwame Brown #1. So, yeah, I just
Oh man.
Kemba Walker was the only good thing that team had going for it seemed. Now he's gone. So, what do you think of the Hornets? Do you think that they're going to win the Tankathon?
They may. I mean, they completely botched that whole Kemba Walker thing. Like, if you know you're getting rid of him, trade him. Get something for him, even if it's not a lot. Like,
yeah, they gave him all that money, and then just let him go.
They went back on their offer. Like, Kemba was actually willing to sign for less than the Supermax because he made All NBA and he was able, I think, for $225, or it was like $180. I forgot exactly what it was. What he ended up signing for with the Celtics, but yeah, like he was. He said, I'll actually take less to stay here. He really wanted to be there. He was a big part of the Charlotte community, sure. But yeah, and they just completely messed that up. This Hornets team has really no ceiling whatsoever. I think best case scenario is like Miles Bridges just breaks out, or like, I don't know, Terry Rozier is really good, and he is a really good starting point guard. I don't know. This team's really weird in terms of their upside. I don't know, unfortunately for the Hornets, if there's a lot to look forward to this year. Maybe just hope that you're better than you think. A team that I think is going to be the worst team in the league this year is the Cleveland Cavs.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. The Cavs they can't get anything right.
Like, at least the Hornets have some vets on that team. The Cavs really don't. They got Tristan Thompson. J.R. Smith's not with the team anymore. Kevin Love, if he ever plays, as me and David talk about, if he ever gets on the court. But this team it's weird. I like some of their young guys. I think Shetty Osman's pretty good. Colin Sexton, I wasn't completely sold on, but he's a good player. I like Darius Garland a lot. I have no idea how that fits, though, with Colin Sexton, those two in the backcourt. They're both undersized guards. Defensively, it's just weird. Kevin Porter's another guy who I really like at USC. Has all the talent in the world. Just mentally, can he be in the right state of mind? They also have a new head coach in John Beilein, so I don't know. Can he? I think this is like his last dance as being a head coach for anything, because I don't know why he left Michigan to go to the Cavs. They didn't really even offer him that much money. But hey, he's able to develop young guys at Michigan. We'll see if he can do it with Cleveland as well.
It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, but what you mentioned about Kevin Love, it's frustrating, and Tristan Thompson as well. These guys, they were healthy last year, and they were just, he has a sore wrist. Let's sit him out for like 10 games, 20 games. So I think if they play everybody and they gel as a team with the new coach, I think they could, win some games. But as far as the Tankathon, like, I don't really see it brightening up for the Cavs anytime soon. They just can't get anything right.
Yeah, I think LeBron has been the saving grace for this team, basically, if you will, because I just feel like this team is just always historically terrible when he's not there, whereas now, he's gone, he's been gone, and they're just also really bad again. But, let's talk about this in general. We're going to wrap it up here. Talk about some young players. We always see a couple players just maybe didn't have the greatest rookie year, but they just really shine their sophomore year. It could just be grinding in the gym. Could just be, I don't know, maybe just a different coach, a different system, more opportunities, more shots, more playing time, more burn. But then we always see players also fall back and have that sophomore slump, as you know. So, David, let me ask you, from this 2018 class, who are some sophomores that you think could potentially break out this year?
So a guy, I'm going to admit, I'll be biased with this one. A guy who the Sixers took somewhat high last year with the 16th overall pick, I think Zaire Smith. I think, I don't know exactly how many games he got to play last year. He only played about, 15 or 20 games or so at the most. He had that foot injury in the preseason right after he got, or I think in the summer league right after he got drafted. So I think Zaire Smith, he really has a lot of potential. He's about 6'4", 200 pounds. He's as athletic as a guy could be. And I've seen his jump shot. It looks pretty good. And I think if the Sixers really as a team focus on defense, he can gel right into that. And I think he'll have a very strong sophomore year coming off that bench. He doesn't have the pressure of being a starter. So Zaire Smith is my answer for that one.
That's a good answer. We talk about him a bit, obviously, just off camera or off mic, if you will, just because we always talk basketball, and you are a Sixer fan, so you always remind me how good Zaire Smith is. The one thing he does have, like I said earlier, is opportunity. The Sixers bench, my opinion, is really thin. I'm not 100% sold on it yet, but Zaire Smith can really be like that glue guy that can do a little bit of everything. That's going to help the Sixers so much. I would talk about Lonnie Walker, but we did already, so I won't, I want to mention some different names. One guy who I really like this year, that he had a really good rookie year last year, so I'm not necessarily saying he's not on the map, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's in a new situation with the OKC Thunder. I think a guy like him, a young up-and-coming point guard, benefits a lot from playing with Chris Paul. I'm sure Chris Paul can show him so many different things. I know the body types are different. Chris Paul's 6 foot. Shai's 6'6" with a 7 foot wingspan. Like he's long and wiry, but
even playing with a center like Steven Adams, I think that helps out a point guard so much.
Yeah, I mean he's in a good spot with the Thunder. And both I think the Thunder could be competitive, but I also think that he can learn a lot from these vets as well, and he has opportunity, which he had last year with the Clippers. He did
and
start.
look what they did.
And look what they did. I think Shai is just a really good player. I think what I saw in the preseason, he's playing a lot better off the ball, which is interesting because he was a very ball-dominant player at Kentucky, and now he's being able to shoot off the dribble a bit. He's able to create off the bounce if he's not the initiating playmaker, if you will. I really like his game this year. I think he's going to really thrive with the Thunder. He was second-team all-rookie last year, so I'm not saying this was a guy that, didn't do anything. That was just a guy, in my opinion, who, I think he benefited from playing on a good team. I think he will take another jump this year.
Yeah, I agree. The Thunder are very interesting. I don't think they'll make the playoffs out west, but I think they'll be very interesting to watch. My only concern with them, like you said with the opportunity thing, if Chris Paul pulls one more hammy, what do they have? But with that being said, they
have Shai.
Yeah, they have him, and he'll get all the opportunity he'll ever want. So I think the opportunity for him is there.
Yeah, a player that I'm going to be a little less optimistic about is, and I love this player. I was really high on him entering the draft, but we talked about him earlier. Mo Bamba, I feel like he's just in a weird spot with the Magic. He's the back.
Absolutely.
He was the 6th overall pick. They invested a lot in him. I think the Magic thought that they were going to move on from Nikola Vucevic, but he played really well and earned his money, respectively so, had an all-star season.
Right.
And I think it's different because I think Bamba, what he's really good at is defense, what Vucevic is really good at is offense. And they're both really bad at the opposite one, so they complement each other. If they were a combined player, they'd be really good. But
right.
Instead, two very good players. But I think Mo Bamba's just kind of weird in the depth chart. I just don't know how he really fits with the Magic, and I wouldn't be shocked if they eventually move on from him.
Yeah, I agree. Just everything about the Magic is kind of weird.
Yeah,
with that,
they're good.
Even Markelle
but,
Fultz too coming back. So there's that. So one more guy I'm going to mention, and admittingly, I don't know a whole lot about this guy because I only got a couple chances to see him play. I think Anthony Simmons on the Portland Trailblazers.
Simmons is good.
Yeah, I really like him. He can create his own shot and shoot. The guy's a baller. He's just he's really nice with it on offense. I don't know a whole lot about how he is as a defender, but Coach Terry Stotts over there in the Portland Trailblazers, I feel like he's a candidate for Coach of the Year every year. He's a phenomenal coach, and he's a huge reason why that they're in the playoff mix every year. So I think Simons is how you pronounce it, actually?
It's Simons, yeah.
Yeah, so I think him playing behind Lillard and CJ McCollum moving into this next year, I think that'll pay off huge for him, and I think the kid has so much potential.
Yeah, you're high on him. The Trailblazers organization is really, really high on him.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because he was a player, he did not go to college. He committed to Vanderbilt, would have played alongside Darius Garland. Too bad we didn't get to see that, but I guess we wouldn't have anyway if Garland tore his meniscus. But he decided to instead, because he was actually eligible due to his age and stuff, to enter the draft, so he did. The Trailblazers took a flyer on him with the 24th pick. He came out of IMG Academy. That school produces a ton of NBA players. They're kind of like one of the blue bloods of high school basketball. And yeah, he looked really good in summer league. He offensively is so skilled. Defensively, he's not that big. He got bigger physically, but and again, he's only I think 19-ish years old. So he's really young, a guy who has a lot of upside as well. A guy like Seth Curry's no longer with the team, so maybe,
Yeah, he fits right into that role perfectly.
Yeah, he fits right in, and he's going to get more opportunities. Again, it's kind of been the running theme for us here. So, yeah, that's going to wrap up our Ball Don't Lie podcast. It was a lot of fun talking to you, David, as always. Be sure to catch us in the coming weeks as well, especially as we get closer to the NBA season to start. It's just around the corner, and I just can't wait, right, David?
I'm so excited. I am excited. I'm literally excited about all the teams in the NBA this year. I'm very curious about every single one. We didn't get to all of them today, but any team that you bring up to me, I'm excited for. So what was it, 12 days away?
Yeah, 12 days.
Yeah, I can't wait. So you guys make sure you check us out next week. And I've had a lot of fun talking basketball with you, Hunter, and I can't wait till next week.
Yeah, no team gets left behind on Ball Don't Lie.
That's right.
Everyone gets exposed, both good and bad. We'll cover all 30 teams. We'll get to every single player as we possibly can, too. So, yeah, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate all the love and support.
Thank you so much for listening.
Yep, and we'll catch you soon. Peace out.
Good night.
Thank you for watching our latest edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.